Hello everybody, welcome to G4G here on YouTube. Today the background game is going to be Marvel Contest of Champions, otherwise known as MCOC or just COC or COC or greedy fucking piece of shit. However, we won't be discussing a greedy fucking piece of shit. We will be discussing the probably... Well, I won't even say it. I'll let you decide on how you feel about it by the end of the video. I was going to say we're going to be talking about and then give a funny name for Saviors of the Multiverse. But you might not necessarily share my opinion. So in that case, I'm just going to say today we're going to be talking about Saviors of the Multiverse. And as you can see from the title of the video, we're just talking about losing hope. So, as you well know, a couple months ago, there was a dev stating that he was going to be bringing back Marvel Avengers Alliance as Saviors of the Multiverse. At the time that things began to ramp up, as we heard a little bit more and more about the game, I asked him would he be up for an interview that I could then take and make a YouTube video about. Some other people that I knew were like, hey dude, why don't you just do it on Twitch? And like I said in other videos, this is something that I wanted to kind of keep to myself for being special, baby. Special in the sense of he wasn't going to be overwhelmed with a bunch of people, you know, spamming questions at him and everything like this. I was going to go with my agenda and ask him his, you know, pertinent questions and see where it went from there. Now, originally, I had this video filmed last night, but I was so ridiculously tired. By the end of sentences, I was forgetting what I said at the beginning of the sentence, and I probably made about as much sense as tits on a boar. So, I'm redoing it for today, so this is a day late, but really, it's not like anything has changed, so it's not necessarily fading in terms of topics or anything like that. So, you know, at the time he said no because he didn't want to draw too much attention to it. And also, not that I knew it at that particular point in time, he was lifting his neighbor's Wi-Fi, likely because he didn't really have access to his own. That didn't exactly send up some red flags, but sort of, and it kind of warranted a little bit of investigation, like why does this guy have to lift his neighbor's Wi-Fi? Well, when he decided that he needed to go underground and park the project for a little while, people investigated his Reddit posting history and did discover that they believed he is in the Philippines. I was a little bit shocked by this because in his I need to go underground message on Reddit, he mentioned why he was the one who had to look for a job and stated, you know, what his family was doing, that he had to be the breadwinner and not other people. And one of them was that one of the people in the family was studying for the bar. Now, I thought the bar was a uniquely American term for becoming a lawyer. It turns out that it is not. There is actually a bar in the Philippines. And I mean that as in the lawyer sense, not as in the drinking sense. I'm sure there's both. But yes, there is in fact passing the bar in the Philippines. So it more than likely is very, very true that that is where he is. And as of right now, the Philippine economy is not the best. So, we have a very rough situation on our hand as fans of this potential game, in the sense that he has to rely on hacking Wi-Fi to get access to the net, And now he is going to be, quote unquote, looking for a job as much full-time as possible because he has to be the breadwinner. So you may say to yourself, well, he maybe doesn't have enough time to code it, but I'm sure he has enough time to update us on like what exactly is happening, what's going on with his life, and not just completely disappear like Amelia Earhart. Well, if you recall his Wi-Fi issues, it certainly explains both aspects of this. The lack of programming in the game and the lack of being out front running press tours about the game. So he set the whole subreddit to be private a little while ago, and everybody initially thought they had gotten banned. I, before reading Discord that day, thought that I had been banned too, so I asked to get back in. Mostly under the premise of like, hey dude, I didn't shit on your parade over here, why am I getting banned? So he actually allowed me back in. And what was surprising about it was the fact that he was like, oh yeah, I knew I forgot somebody who should be back in here. And he let me in. I was kind of surprised by that because to this guy, I was nothing. Yes, I did reach out to him once in a private message and ask him if I could interview him and let him know, you know, who I was, that I produced content on YouTube and, you know, that the video would go up on YouTube of his answers and my questions and everything. But I didn't particularly think I was that chummy with him. And he was like, yeah, you should be back in here. And he let me in. It's like, okay. I can tell you that nothing has gone on in that subreddit. He has not posted, like, I found a job. I don't have to work as many hours as I thought. I'm starting, like, or I haven't found a job yet. But as somebody who has been jobless at occasional points in the last 5 years or so, you know, I can tell you what it is like to look for a job. It is not, however, 24/7. It is just a few hours per week. Now, that is for the kind of job that I do. Maybe not his situation, where in reality it's like, I just need any job possible, whether it's at Philippine McDonald's, Starbucks, you know, working a tilapia farm out there. Who knows what this guy does? I don't know the tech market. I don't know the coding market out there. But it's certainly not 24/7. And if you make it 24/7, let me tell you, you will scoop your eyes out with a melon baller. You would absolutely want to kill yourself if you made it a 40-hour-a-week thing to find a job. Now, if he's working multiple jobs to help his family, you know, that certainly would explain a lot. And based on the post that he made about the status of his family, I can imagine that certainly happening. That he has like a day job and maybe a night job so they can put food on the table. Well, at the time that this all went down, when we first found out about this game and when he said he was going underground and everything like that, I was not particularly cynical. My cynicism has begun to mount towards a fever pitch, actually more and more as time has gone on since the dev went underground. And there is a reason for that, and that is because I have seen several times people talking about having the source code to the game. And also other failed attempts to bring the game back, including the semi-famous, I know a Russian dude who will do this, but he wants $1,000 to start. Yes, this is legit. He's, you know, but no, it was not legit by any stretch, because we stopped hearing about it. It was like a one-post thing with a reply once, and then, you know, this guy certainly did not push it any further. But based on previous proof, the Russian situation, the current situation, people saying, hey, I found this zip I think it has the game code in it, blah, blah, blah. I have really begun to think about this in a much smarter way, and I'm really realizing we might not ever honestly get the game back whatsoever. Here's the reason why. The zip file that had been getting paraded around saying, I think this is it, it has actually turned out to be a zip file of the assets of the game. Now, I'm going to pause here in MCOC and actually use this game as an example of what we're talking about. So you're probably saying, all right, Napalm, what do you mean it's just the assets of the game? Well, what you are looking at here with this screen is made up of assets. You have the UI, the user interface, which includes this rectangle of my level and my highest character and my name and my energy and my gold. And assets are Magic's sprite and J-Thor's, Lady Thor, Jane Thor's sprite over here. This thumbnail for Fat Pin and this thumbnail for White Knight Magneto. This fight button is an asset. This use computer-based AI fighting button down at the bottom is an asset. This screen right here is an asset. So basically it is the graphics and the text, the visual part of a game, or otherwise maybe known as the skin or the UI. The code, on the other hand, is the brains of it. If you were to think of a game as a human being, the assets are your skin and a ring on a finger and a necklace and your clothing and your socks and your shoes. Whereas the code of a game is your brain. It's your thinking. It's your gray matter. And every time somebody has posted saying that they have the code, at best it has maybe been a tiny bit of Java, but it has been predominantly asset-based, which makes me think, how did we really believe that this guy actually had the source code to the game? That would be like winning the lottery. If you had a 1 in a million chance to win the lottery and somebody told you, I won the lottery, the first thing you would do is say, yeah, right, and then the second thing you would do is say, prove it. Let's see the winning ticket. I watched the numbers yesterday. Let's see your ticket. Let's see your check. Let's see your contact with the people who are going to pay you out. That's what we are facing with this game. We never saw proof that he had the code. We maybe saw screenshots with some of the dialogue, but again, that's available as an asset and can easily be photoshopped. We never saw any little bit of code whatsoever, and if he had the code, the ability to simulate one battle as a demo, as a pitch, I guess you would, if he was a developer and he went into, say, EA Studios or Bethesda Studio, he would be like, here is a demo of my game. We never saw the game in action, so how do we honestly know that this guy won the lottery and actually has the code? Because if you think about it, how did he ever fucking get it? The code resided on Playdom servers and was server-based. I don't think you can successfully reverse engineer the game based on the cached code from the game via Facebook. We certainly know there would never be any chance of the old player database, because that would be a major security breach if the player database was revealed. Granted, it would not reveal credit cards and everything because it went through PayPal's payment structure. PayPal would have had your credit card, but not necessarily Playdom or Disney. So that at least would be safe, but the player base would have everybody's names and authentication and everything like that, even as passed through via Facebook. So we know that would never be possible. But to have the original source code I don't think so. Well, you may say, hey, Napalm, but that happens with World of Warcraft. In other games, they run emulated servers or private servers and everything like that. Like, what about the big deal about the Wrath-only server and the Vanilla-only servers and everything like that? Well, these people get their hands on the server code a different way. I don't truly believe, now that I think about it more open-mindedly and smarter, that he honestly ever had the code. Because tell me how he got it. He never once mentioned my father's brother's sister's cousin's former roommate. He never did the Spaceballs thing and said, you know, I know somebody who worked at Playdom. They packed up the code when they left because they didn't want to see the game. Like, we never got an explanation as to how, when all the times that this has floated to the surface that the game is going to get redone, how does he have the code? Now, he was going to try to fly under the radar by redoing the assets of it. In other words, you're looking at Kingpin on your screen over here, and he's big, and he's white, and he's fat. By redoing the assets, he was going to change. He was going to have people change the colors and change the name. So instead of Kingpin, it might have been the Boss. And maybe he would be, like, Hispanic and have a mohawk or something. It would be something to make him not be Kingpin. Even though, like, we knew he was Kingpin, he wasn't going to get called out. He wasn't going to get looked. He wasn't going to look that way. So the intellectual property wouldn't have been an issue. Also, if you think of Tiny Mighty and their version of the game, where, like, Professor Xavier was Wheels or something like that, and Jean Grey was Genie Telepath or something. Like, you knew it was Jean Grey, you knew it was the Phoenix, but it was Grey Genie or something like that. And it even looked so much like her. If Marvel didn't shut that down, then his plan for the game at least could have been a possibility, with everybody being, like, recolored, slightly reskinned, and renamed. And he said, I will release the code so that you can change it back if you want, which then absolves me of my responsibilities. But if you want Deadpool, you can fucking get Deadpool again, rather than Sword and Guns guy. Regenerating Sword and Guns cancer head. Or, you know. But the reason why I've truly believed that hope is now lost at this point, aside from the amount of times people have said that they have the code when in reality they don't, is this post by Tech Paradox on the Marvel Avengers Alliance section of Reddit, not the Saviors of the Multiverse. It's in a thread where a guy says, hey, I got banned from Saviors of the Multiverse. What happened? And this guy, Tech Paradox, happened to have posted recently, and he said something that has really begun to resonate with me, and I now kind of subscribe to this philosophy. I quote, at this point, it is probably best to just accept that the project is dead. The guy who was supposedly working on it announces a delay right before the beta is supposed to be released, throws up an FAQ about the state of the game, quotes, and then 2 hours later announces he's suddenly suspending his development for financial reasons. Quotes again, something stinks in this scenario, and it is not yesterday's fish. Dude bit off more than he can chew if he ever was working on it in the first place and wasn't just photoshopping dialogue screens. Realized he was going to get called out on it, but when the time came to put up or shut up, he then made excuses, needing instead of just manning up and apologizing for getting everybody's hopes up. At this point, it's time to deal with our grief and just move on. I think he has a very valid point, and as depressing as it sounds, and as much as you want to be like, no, Santa does exist, I've seen him, we really now have to say, did you see him or did you see your dad in a Santa suit when you were half asleep and he was down the hall? That's unfortunately where we are at this point in time. And we have to think cynically, yet realistically, not depressingly or angrily, but we do have to think honestly. Where did this guy get the code from that supposedly he was using to work the game? That is a major... Wow, my gold is starting to get low again. Holy shit. That is a major aspect of this that really needs to be answered if we are to believe that he, in fact, was working a game. Am I going to sit here and say the guy was doing a flim-flam bamble-doodle-doozle? Am I going to sit here and say this is in league with the supposed phony Russian $1,000 thing? No. It is certainly the weirdest bamboozle out there, in the sense that he asked for nothing. He didn't do a Kickstarter and then, as so many famous gaming Kickstarters have had, took the money and run. Ooh, hoo, go on, take the money and run. That's not what happened. He just talked about it, and then people got excited, and the Discord blew up with, like, let's do these Spec Ops, and let's do these seasons, and, you know, invent all these characters and everything, and they were really flushing out what they wanted from the game. And again, the dev really gained nothing from this. He would, if anything, maybe gain some notoriety, but it's not like he got a whole bunch of stuff from people. And that's kind of the thing of it. That's the unique thing about this situation, is that it doesn't follow the standard laws of a bamboozle, I guess. It didn't do the Kickstarter thing. It didn't do the $1,000. It didn't... nothing was solicited. And he was so little connected to the net. There was not much he really was gaining from this. Other than if he would have to be the biggest troll of all time at this point, where he wasn't doing it for any form of gain whatsoever. He was doing it just to mess with people's heads. It also was slightly off-timed. It wasn't even really around the 1-year anniversary, because it had basically died kind of before we got to that point. Which, again, would have been another sign of a troll, is like to wait for the 1-year anniversary part where everybody's emotions would be at the fever pitch on this. And as it is, when we hit September, and certainly September 30th, things did certainly reach a bit of a pitch as we hit really the official 1-year mark, and everybody began to reminisce and whatnot. So I really do believe at this point we have to face the fact that we probably will never see this. And if the dev ever does come back alive again and say, okay, I have my job, I'm working, 40 hours a week, but I can spend some time coding this because I still don't have internet, so it's not really like I can game. I can't get on the net and play COD with you guys, or Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta or something like that. So my only things that I can really do at this point in time are work and code. So I'm going to start coding again. The first thing anybody should do is grab him by the back of his head and go, where is your code from? You say you have the code, you say you're going to release it when you've got a beta up so people can modify it. How do you have this code? From whence did you come upon this? And I think that has to be everybody's first question and nothing else. And no other statement like, glad to hear you're back, buddy. Glad you... No. The first thing has to be prove that you have the code. How did you come upon this? And that's really the key thing, because I still don't get how he would have it, especially after seeing so many other failures out there and so many other unbelievable scenarios. The one guy who said he was doing a card-based game on Marvel Avengers Alliance makes sense because that's original code. How is he reverse engineering this entire game? The guts, the calculations, the RNG of it. You know, replacing the necessity for spending converted real-life currency or adding features to the game that allow you to get gold easier without... because you can't spend on it anymore. So that's my thoughts on it. I'm glad I waited a night to do this video, as I'm way more clear-headed than when I was falling asleep last night. I do apologize to be sitting here saying there is no Tooth Fairy Santa, Easter Bunny, Lucky the Leprechaun, 4th of July Harry, Hanukkah Harry. I'm sorry to be bringing this bad news to you guys, but we have to be honest with each other as a community on this. I just don't really know how this is going to happen. So, what do you guys think? Aside from thinking, hey, maybe you're right, I don't think it's going to happen. Tell me, like, a deeper opinion that you have on this. Like, do you agree that he probably doesn't have the source code? Do you have the knowledge to think, hey, I really do agree with you. It doesn't make sense that he has the code. How would he ever get it? Or, hey, no, you know what, Napalm? I think he really could have the code because of... And give an example, like the World of Warcraft servers or something like that. Say, they did it this way. They could do it with the game too. So, let me know what you think. Sorry again for maybe being the purveyor of bad news here, but I think at this point that's the only news we have. See you later, everybody.